Okay, my last video was about the horses charging into the St George's Day parade in London, and I am going to be talking about the GB News report of that and the idiocy of one of the panellists. That is just incredible idiocy, and he really does deserve a mention. Okay, I'm Granniopteryx. So this presenter, Michelle Dewberry, is talking about the fact that the police horses went into a crowd, and they really didn't need to. I'll leave a link to that previous video I made. And there's also a link to, I can't stress this enough, the video I made 2 years ago about the Mounties going into the crowd in Ottawa, because there is detailed information there on how to deal with things if you're trapped with a horse pushing you. And you really should take a look at that and memorize it. Okay, but now we press on with somebody who doesn't really have the intelligence of a horse. I'll get on to him in a minute.
But anyway, as the event kind of carried on, I saw lots of TSG units piling in, police with their helmets and all the rest of it. And it feels to me like there is a two-tiered approach, Quentin, when it comes to protesting in this country. Because why am I not surprised that this chap is called Quentin? I'm sorry, and she's absolutely right, Dewberry. It's quite obvious. The police went in on that crowd, and where they you remember there's a video of some policemen saying, well, there are only a few of us and we can't handle this crowd, so you, that is the Jewish man he was talking to, you will have to go, either of your own volition or we'll have to arrest you for your own protection.
You are quite openly Jewish. This is a pro-Palestinian march. I'm not accusing you of anything, but I'm worried about the reaction to your presence. There's a unit of people here now. You've been escorted out of this area so you can go about your business, go where you like freely, or if you choose to remain here because you are causing a breach of peace with all these other people, you will be arrested.
If I remain here, you will arrest me.
Because your presence here is antagonising a large group of people, and we can't deal with all of them if they attack you or if they because your presence is antagonising.
That policeman was dressed in ordinary, sort of jackets and nothing particular, and he said they were under strength to deal with real trouble from that crowd. They were sent in on that premise. These police were in full riot gear. The crowd wasn't anywhere near as big, and it was, as far as I can tell, completely non-violent. The St George's Day thing, as I said, it's entirely comprehensible why people should be making a thing out of St George's Day where they didn't when I was a kid, because there was no need. We all knew who we were. We didn't have to parade with flags. Anyway, let's get on to Quentin.
I don't see every week that kind of police approach.
No, you don't, and I think that's a fair point. However, I would also just sound a little note of caution about this event. First I heard about this event today was the helicopters flying over.
He works for the Daily Mail? Good grief. All right, let's carry on.
Westminster, and suddenly thought, well, there's something going on here. But this was, it seems to have had some sort of political flavour to it, because it had speeches were going to be organised, I think.
Of course it has a political flavour. And what do you think those Hamas things have? Oh, no, they're just charitable vicarage tea party affairs, aren't they? Where has this man been living? Let's go on.
I think by Lawrence Fox and Tommy.
We can't have anyone worse than Lawrence Fox, can we? Ah, we can. Let's go continue.
Robinson, who's not a particularly hygienic fellow.
What? Tommy Robinson, not a particularly hygienic fellow. Now, I want you to notice her face. She actually gave the best rundown of it, and it's rather amusing that in this particular case, you've got the women who have their heads screwed, because basically a lot of the time when you get panelists on TV shows of any sort, you get a lot of airy-fairy, silly ideas, liberal nonsense from a lot of liberal nonsense women, and you get the men making sense. Whereas in this case, it's completely the other way around, which only goes to show that it's the way the television shows are picking their panelists that give us this impression that a lot of women are, more stupid than a lot of men. That sort of gives you an idea of how the media can skew your way of thinking. All right. Well, anyway, she comes up with a good thing. I probably won't have time to get to much of what she says, though. Quentin Letts is a goldmine of stupid enough.
Therefore, it certainly wasn't. This was not could not have been mistaken for a Church of England fete.
Well, hang on, by the way, because I didn't want.
Hang on. It could certainly be mistaken for a Church of England fete if you contrast it with what happens with the pro-Hamas supporters. Now, he's making a lot of assertions about Tommy Robinson, who was assaulted by the police. He was grabbed, he was kidnapped, he was pepper sprayed when he was handcuffed. I mean, there is absolutely no doubt about it that he was completely in the right, and the police were acting like the bunch of thugs that they are turning into. And the way they dealt with that crowd, which I showed you in the previous video, you can see quite well that they're still acting thuggishly. Now, that sort of thing comes from the top. The fact that the police authorities, be it the mayor or the controllers of the police, put just a few unarmed representatives of the police at a Hamas fest, and then take out full riot gear and horses for a St. George's Day parade, at which you have such terrible fascists as Lawrence Fox and Tommy Robinson, a man who has recently been sent out of court by the judge saying the police have absolutely no case here. And that's a terrible thing. And he's swallowing that whole. What is the matter with the man? I mean, he's obviously got some sort of education.
In case anyone's not familiar, you say about Tommy Robinson, whatever you just described him as, he had the final day of a court case today when the Met Police were found to have acted in a way against him that was actually unlawful. He essentially had his case chucked out of court. Apparently, he shouldn't have been arrested in the way that he was. He shouldn't have had bail conditions attached to him the way that he should have.
Be that as it may, I'm just not sort of...
Oh, yeah. Be that as it may, you say that and then move on, because you've just been exposed for being stupid. There's nothing like the upper class twerp intellectuals like him for being able to deflect, to make assertions and then move on. Like a hit and run.
Sure that he's an entirely neutral figure.
He's not an entirely neutral figure. Of course he's not an entirely neutral figure. He is somebody who is standing up for what... Oh, I'm sorry. Just a minute. Husband, bringing the phone in. I'll cut this. Yeah. Right, that was my husband. He's got to go to the optician. I'm surprised he found his way up to the attic. Okay, now, where was I? Yeah, the upper class view of the working class is absolutely in his attitude. And you make assertions about the working classes and then you move on. Well, be that as it may. Means nothing. Except, yeah, well, let's go on, because I've said something I can't prove.
Anyway,
What's that got to do with the price of fish if someone's not neutral?
well, what I'm saying is I think this was undoubtedly a political event and that the police would have had their eye on that.
That's right, yeah. It was a political event for sure. And I'll tell you what, the new Conservative conference in Belgium, which was shut down by the mayor of Brussels, that was also a political event. And it caused international outrage when it was shut down. And there were a bunch of people talking about political philosophy. I don't expect most of those people to be doing much philosophizing, but they weren't doing any violence either, and they were not calling for genocide. And they weren't making things so difficult for passing Jews that the police had to arrest the passing Jew for his own safety. This man's a disgrace. And he writes for the Mail. Yeah, I've read his stuff. He can put a couple of sentences together. He's fairly bright. What's the matter with him here?
As a result, this was not a civic family gathering.
But what's not? Okay, you can say that these pro-Palestine marches,
Yeah, which the police also...
some form of political statement by many.
The police
I don't see police horses charging.
Yeah, which the police do. No, they're not doing anything. As I have said, arresting or threatening to arrest Jews for, walking on the pavement while Jewish.
People, I don't see people.
Well, the police certainly turn up at those events.
What, in that manner, Quentin?
The police certainly turn up. Boy, oh boy, the rationalisation. That is just... Oh, look, if anyone who knows Quentin Letts sees this video, please make sure he sees it and tell him that I think he's an idiot. He's an idiot with a posh accent. I can do a posh accent too.
I am reluctant to attack the police without strong evidence.
Oh, they're not reluctant to attack people like Tommy Robinson. And if you want strong evidence, just look at the video of them arresting Tommy Robinson, Quentin, darling.
Otherwise.
So you think that it's all nothing to see here? The way that they police that event today is exactly the way they police everything else?
Not saying that, not at all. And
Backpedal.
I like seeing police horses charging into crowds. However, I am not yet convinced that the police are bang to rights on this.
Hello?
I think there's two things happening here. On the one hand, these kind of St. George's Day events, gatherings, protests, whatever you want to call them, historically do quite often descend into, shoving around police horses, a bit of disorder, a bit of drinking, all the rest of it. So, I mean, on the one hand, that happens. I suppose the police have to respond to it. And I think Quentin was fairly light on Tommy Robinson. He's very litigious, so I'm not going to go into it, but certainly I wouldn't want to go drinking with him. I don't think he's a nice bloke. I don't think his views are very nice. The second point is that the police are treating this differently. So, for example, they've got to put in a Section 60 order to allow them to increase stop and searches, insist on people removing their masks. And, that kind of quick, hard and heavy action has been absent from some of the Saturday pro-Palestine marches, for example, where you see a tenor within the police or a sort of approach of much more kind of, well, the jihad thing, it's debatable. We kind of do a hands-off thing. Or even...
Okay, you see, so she's talking absolute sense. So what I played that for, I'm going to have to cut bits out of it to shorten the video. But I do want you to think about this. When you get mainstream media, they tend to get women who are complete nutters and have no sense. And here there are two women who have a lot of sense. There are people like that. It's just that the mainstream media aren't picking them. And then GB News got Quentin Letts of the Daily Mail to talk total rubbish. And neither of them likes Tommy Robinson. I think they're both wrong. I wouldn't mind having an evening down the pub with Tommy Robinson.
quite frankly, I'd prefer it to an evening down the pub with Quentin Letts. Okay, till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the granniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.granniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.